Well, my name's Richard Bargett, and I'm executive editor of the Journal of Ecology. Now, each year, the editors of the Journal of Ecology honour an ecologist in our Eminent Ecologist series. And this year, I'm delighted to be talking today to this year's recipient, Fernando Maestre, who is Professor of Environmental Science and Technology at King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. Now, Fernando will be known to many readers of the Journal of Ecology. He's published many papers in the journal, and he's internationally acclaimed for his work on the ecology of drylands and their response to global environmental change. Fernando's received a string of awards in recognition of his research. These include the National Research Award from the Ministry of Science and Innovation in Spain in 2022. He's a distinguished scientist from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and he was also elected Académico of the Royal Spanish Academy of Sciences in 2023. So welcome, Fernando, and many congratulations on the award.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Richard. And first of all, I would like to thank you and the rest of editors of the journal, because it has been really an honor and a privilege to receive this recognition. And I have to say that I had to read your email multiple times when I got it, because yeah, it really touched me deeply. Journal of Ecology is, I can say that it's my favorite journal. I think it's the journal where I have published most papers along through my career. Yeah, and it has been a real honor to be recognized with this. So yeah, thanks again, and yeah, welcome. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, and yeah, it was a pleasure for us to offer you this award. One of the things that our readers are often interested in with our Eminent ecologists is really how they got to be in the position that they're in. So I guess the first thing I'd be interested in talking to you about is really how did you decide you wanted to be an ecologist in the first place?
Yeah, that's a very nice and good question, because to be honest, when I was a child, I was not planning to be a scientist. You know, I used to spend a lot of time outdoors, but that's because my parents had a house in the mountains close to my hometown, and we spent there a lot of time. You know, I spent as a child, 1 month every summer, many weekends. So yeah, I was raised, in close to natural environment. But as a child, I don't think I cannot remember that. I wanted to be a naturalist, or I never have been very good identifying birds, something like that. And I didn't have like any academic or scientific member in my family that will push me somehow through an academic career as a biologist or an ecologist. And indeed, when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a medical doctor. I started my high school years thinking that I was going to be a medical doctor. But when I was, maybe 16, 17, 17, maybe I think 17, 18, I really started to be worried about the environment. I started to read quite a bit, and 2 books in particular were quite impactful for me at the time. And then I started to think that maybe I could switch, rather than going to medical school, to study biology as a way to, contribute to solve environmental problems, of at least to put my 2 cents, to contribute to address environmental issues. So I decided to study biology in the University of Alicante, where I come from, in the southeast of Spain. And at the time, I was really excited about everything related to particularly plants. I love zoology classes, but I really like botany classes, plant physiology classes, and I love ecology classes. And because I like the ecology classes so much, and I like a lot the professor that was teaching, the way that he teaches. I think that's something that is, now that I'm a professor, I appreciate the influence we have on our students. And this combination that I really like the subject, and I really like the person that was teaching that subject. Then I start to collaborate with him and with other colleagues at the Department of Ecology. And this is how I get hooked into ecology. And then I had the chance, when I finished my degree, to do a PhD. So yeah, I started a PhD in ecology.
Yeah. And did you always want to work on drylands? I mean, was that something when you first started working that was a particular interest?
Yeah, for me, that was like a natural choice, for a very simple reason, because I was born and raised and study and work in a dryland environment. So for me, it was like the natural choice. I did my PhD in Spain, because the lack of resources is not common. It's not common. Some groups do, but it's difficult to, let's say, support a research program in Africa or in Latin America or in, in the Arctic. It's not common. Of course, there are people working in Antarctica or the Arctic that they are part of the polar missions. But in Alicante, there was not the possibility to do like field work in remote areas. So studying there in Alicante was like the natural choice for me. And I have to say that I realized of this later, right? When I grow up, that I really like it there. I really like, working in open spaces. I remember going during my PhD, I spent 3 months in Montana and I did some field work in forest. And for me, it was such an unnatural environment. It was so difficult to move around, even just to work, when, working in these open, dry spaces. And I like it from the very beginning. So for me, it was like a natural choice. And I have to say that another motivation that I realized later on, but as an ecology student in Europe and in Spain in particular, I studied a lot with the Begon. We call the Begon, right? The Begon and Townsend. I think, I don't know, this classical ecology textbook.
Yeah, I bought myself.
Well, it's a wonderful book and it has, hundreds of examples, but if you go across them, virtually none of them come from drylands. And then I start to see, okay, we are, living and working in areas that cover more than 40% of terrestrial surface, but all ecological theory, most ecological work, virtually all the ecological work and the literature has been carried out in non-dryland environment, except in a few exceptions, in the US or Australia, for instance, right? So also, this was also an important motivation for me to try to contribute, with modesty, of course, and to devote my scientific career and my research to drylands.
Was there a particular time when, I mean, we go through training, you obviously did your degree and then your PhD. Was there a time when you decided, I want to make a career of this, that I want to carry?
Well, for me, that was clear, like, in my biology degree was 4 years. Yeah. And I think in the second year, I really wanted to make a PhD. And that's when I decided. When I started to do fieldwork, I said, well, that's for me. It's because, like most ecologists, I really like to be outdoors. And it's very appealing, right? The possibility of making a living, right? Or making a career, even if it's very difficult. It was very difficult then, as it's very difficult now, right? To make a career, to make a living out of this. But this is, I think that was like the turning point. When I started to collaborate with colleagues in the Department of Ecology, when I started to participate in real experiments, right? How do we do field work? How do we collect data? This is, what we do as a way of living, right? And I really like it. And then I say, well, if I can, because of course at the time I didn't know if I could have the chance to get a fellowship or to get the possibility of, getting paid for doing a PhD and a career. And that's when I decided that I wanted to do it.
Yeah, and then I think then after that, Alicante, you went to Duke for 2 years, and that must have been quite a change. One, you're moving away from your drylands, but
that was
to the US. So I just
was very, very interesting because I moved to Duke with a project that the idea was to work in the Duke. It has been a few years since I have not been there, but at the time they have a wonderful phytotron. It was one of the best in the world. A place full of greenhouses, growth chambers where you could manipulate environmental conditions as you want. And I moved there with a project to work with desert plants. Just to do desert plants. So it's an experiment about desert plants. But then I arrived there, and I realized that the project was not funded. And my postdoc advisor told Fernando, I'm really sorry, we didn't get this project, but here is the phytotron. You can do whatever you want at the phytotron. And then I say, well, it was hard at the beginning because you can imagine, you have everything in your mind. Oh, I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this postdoc on this wonderful project with my desert plants that I love. I will be able to go to the desert, collect seeds, grow them here, blah, blah. But then I say, well, I was at Duke, it's a wonderful place. The phytotron, it's a wonderful facility. And what did I have? Okay, I had the Duke forest, so I was able to collect soil there. And then at the time, I was very interested in soil heterogeneity. And, I was starting to reading a lot the work of Mike Hutchins. I really love his work. I follow At the time, that was 2003, that was a very trendy topic, right? Within plant ecology, plant-soil interactions, how environmental heterogeneity impacted plants and soils and so on. So I started to do a very nice set of experiments, in the phytotron, manipulating environmental soil heterogeneity or natural heterogeneity combined with CO2 and other environmental, watering and so on. And I work with, temperate grassland plants and soils from the Duke Forest. And it was a big change, but also was very nice because it was a very nice learning experience. I learned a lot about many things that otherwise I would have not had the chance to learn.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we do with the Eminent Ecologist is that we also ask you to select 12 papers or around that you've actually published in Journal of Ecology. And you've published quite a lot of papers in Journal of Ecology. But I wondered are there any of those that you would say really stand out, or one of them that stands out to you as your favorite? I mean, that's a difficult question, but I wonder if if there was one of those papers that you feel particularly proud of, or you feel has made an important contribution.
Yeah, that's difficult, really, because, all the papers are special to me. All the papers I have published in the journal and everywhere, but we are talking about those in the journal are special to me because for multiple reasons, either because, they were published at a time where, publishing in Journal of Ecology was like a major hit, or either because of the work involved, or either because, the memories that, that paper brings to me, because for me, that's very important, trying to enjoy, the process, because we focus so much on the paper itself. But typically, we forget the journey leading to the paper. And for me, this is something very important. So I cannot really pick up like one, that stand out over the rest. But I can pick two,
Okay, that's okay.
One of them is the first. I think that the first papers are always important, right? For for me, the first paper you publish is a paper that you always remember, at least in my case. And in this case, the first paper I published in Journal of Ecology is one that I really remember, which was this meta-analysis was published in 2005 about the stress gradient hypothesis. That's a paper also that had was quite influential. You got a lot of citations, a lot of criticisms. It led to multiple changes. And I now, of course, over 20 years have passed since it was published. And now I look at, it was a difficult paper at the time because we got quite a few criticisms. But now that I see it with cariño, we say in Spanish, I really appreciate it. And because it's the first, is special. And also the second paper, I need to pick up one on biocrust, which has been one of the model organisms we have worked. And I have been always very proud of publishing biocrust work in Journal of Ecology, because at the time, biocrust were viewed like some kind of niche. This is organisms in drylands, very few people care about them. You need to publish this in a dryland journal, right? Or on lichenologist or in another biologist, right? In these more niche journals. And I always say my colleagues, no, this is wonderful model system to study multiple questions of general interest. They are very important. We need to publish in mainstream journals like Journal of Ecology. And for instance, I can pick up as one of my favorites, but that's because the experiment, the one we published in 2012 with the microcosms, when we create lichen microcosms, and that was a lot of work involved in that paper, but I think it's a very nice paper. And that paper was also funded by a project funded by the British Ecological Society, which is the first competitive project that I got when I started my lab. So it's a very special paper for me.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, your work has obviously moved on, and now you're. I mean, I get the impression your work is really tackling big environmental challenges. Particularly desertification seems to be the sort of major or a big focus of your work. And I just wondered if you could say a little bit about how you're hoping or how you are using your work to inform decision making in that particular area, and also what kind of challenges might you face in actually doing that?
Yeah, thanks. That's a very important question because that's something that we all aim, right? That our work is not only published and discussed and cited within the academic cycles, the research environment, but also that it can influence, right, the way that natural resources are managed, the way that policies are implemented, because this is why we work, right? To try to understand better our environment in order to, contribute to either minimize our impact or either try to manage better resources. In my experience, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for, try to translate the results of a research into, policy making for different reasons. First, because as you can imagine, and the people watching this video will quickly understand, politicians don't understand what we do, right? Because, experimental design, statistics, complex data, we need to distill the results of what we do and explain to them in a very simple manner why they are important and very important. Okay, we are very good identifying problems. Okay, but politicians need solutions. And they say, okay, you need to explain me how I can use your data or your results, your research, your knowledge to solve this problem and this problem and this problem, because that's my job as a politician, right, or a stakeholder. And this is very difficult. First, because we have not been trained. I didn't get any formal training on how to deal with public servants, politicians, and so on. And second, because of the nature of our work, that is very difficult to give clear-cut answers, right? Because, for instance, we are ecologists, and in ecology, almost everything depends on the context, on the environment, and it's very difficult to give clear-cut, and politicians need, okay, I need to plant, 1 million trees. Tell me how to plant it, where to plant it, and that's the type of pressing issues they face, right?
Yeah.
And in my experience, yeah, it's difficult. But of course, I always have tried to do my best to, on the one hand, try to do public outreaching. And through this public outreaching, we can reach politicians. Because if we speak about important topics in Spain, or for instance, in drylands, water management, right? Ecological restoration, they are aware that, okay, everyone is talking about desertification, land degradation, but what is it? Can you explain it to me in simple terms? Can you explain me what drives this problem? And can you tell me 2 or 3 key solutions that we can apply in order to solve this problem? So yeah, it's very difficult. And in my experience, it also depends a lot on the person who you are talking to. There are some, public servants and people in the administration that are very keen to listen and to try to incorporate what science and what we as ecologists have to say. But there are also sometimes people that, politicians, that they only look at the short term, the next election, and everything that may be problematic or that may create, social discussion or that may raise votes to them will not listen as much as we would like to. But I think it's something that we need to try to engage, because as it's part of our social and public responsibility, right? Because we cannot claim in our papers that we need more ecology in order to solve the problems, but then not doing anything to try to use this ecological understanding to contribute to solve this problem. It's not a role or to solve this problem, but we can really play a role in trying to help those in charge of solving these problems, right?
Yeah, I mean, I notice you do also do a lot of outreach work, and again, that seems to me a key part of generally raising awareness about the importance of biodiversity in the natural world. And I wondered if you could just say a little bit about the kind of outreach type work you've done in relation to drylands in particular, and informing about the importance of desertification.
Yeah, that's very important. We have done a lot of outreaching activities, since the classical ones like going to schools, going to open public events and give lectures to the public. We have done public visits to our experiments. We have participated in researchers' nights and all these public events that are some kind of parties, right? Families come and then you show, But to me, what we always have tried to, the key messages that we have tried to give is that drylands are important. For instance, you mentioned biodiversity. If you go to a dryland region and interview 10 people and you ask biodiversity, many of them, not all, but most of them, in my experience, when talking about biodiversity, they will think about the rainforest, or they will think about the nice prairie in Switzerland full of flowers, right? They will never think about the dryland environment like a place with amazing and unique biodiversity. So a lot of our outreaching work has been focusing on trying to emphasize the importance, the biological, ecological, and also the importance for us as humans. Drylands, it's not that they over 40% of the global population will live in drylands, but also, over 50% of the livestock, over 40% of all food production is done in this system. So they are really fundamental, but we are not aware of their importance. So we have tried to use all the tools available. Now, of course, a lot of social media, lots of blogs, electronic means, and a lot of more classical outreaching, but always with the idea of trying to increase the level of awareness about drylands and their importance. Because, yeah, we really, it's not that I really believe, it's that they are really critical for, the sustainability of a planet.
I mean, one of the things that I noted before is you mentioned a very famous ecology textbook about how it was based predominantly on non-dryland or exclusively on non-dryland examples. And I just wondered, how would you see would the face of ecology be very different if it was all entirely based on dryland, if it was the other way around? I mean, and what sort of general things can we learn from studying drylands that can be translated to wider issues in ecology?
Well, I clearly see that, understanding drylands is becoming more and more and more important globally for multiple reasons. Not only because, let's say, if we want to understand, our planet, we cannot forget about 40% of its surface, right? In other words, we can assume that what happens in a good land in England is the same as will happen in a good land in Morocco, right? Yeah. So we really need more, local scale and environment. We really need to understand, if we want to understand how the planet works, we need to understand, like, as much as possible, all the different environments on Earth. Yeah. But there is a second aspect that is really becoming more important, is that many non-dryland areas are becoming drylands because of climate change, or are becoming more and more dry, right? So many of the things that are normal in drylands are becoming the new normal in non-dryland areas. In other words, non-dryland areas today will be drylands in 60 years from now. So let's see, the ecosystems are going to change and are changing and are going to change a lot. So understanding how drylands work will be also relevant. It's also relevant to try to forecast how non-dryland ecosystems will behave in the future as they become drier. So yeah, I think it's, and also the profile of dryland areas, I think, is also increasing because there are more and more researchers in drylands working today than they used to be like 30, 40, 50 years ago. Of course, in general, there are more researchers working everywhere, right? But particularly in drylands, right? You can see the emergence of, for instance, China. Now there is a huge number of researchers working in Chinese drylands, or Latin America, which the numbers, Africa, which is also increasing. And I'm here now in the Middle East, where it's rising, but and this is one of the objectives here, right? To increase the level of terrestrial ecology here in the Middle East, because very few people have been working here. Despite this area is huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing I was going to ask actually, is that you've recently moved, obviously, and do you see the nature of your research changing, or I mean, are there new opportunities for you in terms of the direction of your research in the future?
Well, for me, of course, I'm going to continue working in drylands. But for me, being here now is a wonderful opportunity to study much more than I have studied in the past, the hyper-arid environments, which are the driest drylands, right? Which are those that, because of logistic reasons, we have not studied much in the past. But now, for me, this is a unique opportunity to expand, our global dryland research program into a region that is among the extremes, right? The hyper-arid environments, and also a region that has been poorly studied. Even there are some deserts here that are virtually unexplored. So this is really a unique opportunity to learn more about these hyper-arid environments. And for me, it's also a wonderful opportunity to train the next generation of local environmental scientists and ecologists, because there is a real need in the Middle East, or in Saudi Arabia in particular, where I'm now, to train, local ecologists, local environmental scientists that know about the functioning of their ecosystems, because many government agencies now are facing mandates to manage, in an ecologically sound way, large areas of land, very large areas of land to do ecological restoration, to do species reintroductions, to do wildlife management. And we need ecological understanding in order to properly do this task, right? So for me, this is a wonderful opportunity also to try to pass on to the next generation and to train the next generation of, local environmental scientists and ecologists in particular.
Yeah. I mean, that's another point I was going to ask you about, because my general impression is that there's more interest in environmental issues among younger people. I mean, there could clearly be more people moving into ecology and etc. But again, I mean, if you look back over your career, you've talked about where you started and how you did your PhD, etc. I mean, would there be particular pieces of advice you would give to a young person who was about to embark on a career in ecology?
Oh boy, that's difficult. Yeah, that's a question as important as difficult. Yeah, I know that this sounds very topical, but yeah, I will really ask to follow your instincts, right? And follow what you really like. Because you can imagine at the time when I told my family and my classmates, no, I want to be a biologist because I want to study environment. Everyone say, Fernando, are you crazy? Why are you doing that? You are not going to be able even to make a living, right? So I think it's very important to follow in this case what you really like. And also a piece of advice is don't follow of course, the fashions. What is fashionable at the moment? Because we can see, the topics rise and go. And to me, the most important is, and I know it's difficult for someone that wants to start, no, is to keep a vision. For me, it was very clear from the very beginning, okay, I want to study dryland ecology. Of course, I didn't know at the time where my career will take me, right? But so my advice would be, but I really love what I was doing at the time. And to me, I think it's very important. You are not going to really enjoy and do your best if you don't do something that you really are passionate about. And we're not talking about passionate about, I'm not talking about you need to work like hell, work 24 hours a day. No, I'm talking that you go through a topic that you really like it. And of course, you may try. If it doesn't work, then you might change. But yeah, my recommendation is to follow your instincts. Don't follow, for instance, now, but here, but everywhere. Not everyone is crazy about EI, remote sensing, fancy maps and so on. That's wonderful, of course. But I told everyone, there is no reliable predictions if we don't have reliable data.
Yeah.
And still, and that's something that I have tried to value. I have valued a lot over my career, and I think with modesty or work is also helped to put value on the importance of field data, right? On the importance of going out to the field, even do these crazy ideas of, okay, let's go a global survey, which is crazy, but then it's really valuable. We can see then when we process the data and then with the publications, the value, the unique value, right? And of still of field data, right? Ground data. And I have done it because from the beginning I love it and because I believe that it was important. So yeah, my suggestion, and I know it's very topical and it may not work for everyone, but you just follow your instincts and follow what you really like it.
Yeah, I think
you have the chance, of course. I understand that not everyone has the chance to do what they really like it, but if you have the possibility, at least try to do it.
Yeah, and I think in ecology, I mean, one of the things as well is that you mentioned the field of getting people or helping people get into the situations where they are exposed to the wider environment, and the diversity within it can often help people to find that excitement about the future. So I've just got one final question for you, Fernando, which is it sort of builds on what we're just talking about. But I mean, if you were starting again, what advice would you give your young self in terms of developing your career? If you look back, I mean, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, well, that's difficult. And to be honest, I will not change anything. Yeah, because if I am where I am and I am like I am is because of the past, right? Let's say if I will have done things differently, I will not be like I am right now. Of course, I think it's important. Of course, sometimes I make mistakes, like everyone, but I think it's important to make mistakes, and in order to learn from the mistakes. Yeah, perhaps the only thing that I would have changed is I don't know because I have been very fortunate. I had a wonderful career so far, and yeah, yeah, maybe the only thing that I could say is to, you know, to pay more attention to your family and to your loved ones. At some points where, you know, I have been so much focused on my work that, let's say that now with perspective, it would have been nicer if I would have spent more time with my loved ones. So that's perhaps the only advice that I would have given. That work is very important. We need to do what we love what we do, you know, if we are lucky to have the possibility to make a career in ecology, if we really like it. But I think it's very important to you know, not to miss the important points in life, which are, you know, of course, family and your loved ones is one of them. And I have to say that at the beginning in particular, I was so focused on work that at some point, I missed some very precious time, which if I will have to recover again or to start over, maybe it was not worth it. So, but yeah, other than that, yeah, I think you know, like you, as someone that is taking decisions like every day, some more important, some more fundamental, you know, some like more simple, I never look back, because when you take a decision, it's like the best decision you can take in that particular moment. Can you imagine if we need to reevaluate all our decisions all the time? We will be crazy. So that's the thing with your career. Okay, I never reevaluate. Okay, it's nice to reflect, and for instance, this award has given me a wonderful opportunity to reflect and to think about it and to enjoy the wonderful memories. But yeah, I will not have changed much other than that.
Well, thank you very much, Fernando. It's been fascinating talking to you, and congratulations again on the award. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Having a wonderful to talk to you. And again, thanks to you and the rest of editors for this recognition, which has touched me deeply. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.